Paul Ryan. Welcome back to Southeast Texas Weekly. We appreciate you being here. Anybody like this Medicare that they tell us all about? Medicare. We've come to love it. Godfrey Leggett, Democratic activist, joining us as well today. Everybody loves Medicare. Everybody loves the entitlement program, Social Security. A Bloomberg poll now shows that 57% of Americans polled dislike the plan put forward by Representative Paul Ryan.
Kevin, I'm not sure it's a proper characterization to say that everybody loves Medicare, but they depend on Medicare, okay? The people, older people that are, you know, poor people that need the help. So they depend on it. I'm sure they'd like something better, but the question is who's going to pay for it?
Well, of course, in privatizing, you know, this matter that Paul Ryan has put forth, privatizing the Social Security, for example, doesn't seem to be taking off. Let's go to Michael Truncale for that. Why is it so apparently we just don't seem to be getting any legwork at all on that?
The main thing that we need to keep track of when it comes to health care is the spiraling health care cost. And that's where I think that Republicans offer other alternatives. For example, allowing small businesses to combine in groups, buy insurance across state lines so that they can get a better rate for themselves and for their employees. That would be a way of reducing cost. There are some other things that can be done, like having health savings plans, by having programs to stem medical liability suits.
These are plans that are not on the Paul Ryan
correct,
playbook, so to speak.
The idea is to reduce the cost of health care. That's what's hurting us. Now, Medicare, we must have a system in place to help our neediest people. And I think mainline Republicans would even agree with that. The issue, though, is we must do something to reform Medicare.
Does there need to be reform?
All this sounds real good, but from a pragmatic point of view, right now, when you go to the hospital, it costs a fortune to have anything done in the hospital because they have to treat all the poor people that come in the gate every day with their problems and no insurance, and the hospital has to treat them by law. Right. And so that drives up the cost of hospital care.
Is it necessary that we have some manner of reform? Of course there is. Walston?
But this whole debate just gets under my skin because both parties are using politics. What the Ryan plan does is shift the burden to the states. Right now, when Medicaid is used, the states basically govern it, and they look to the federal government to reimburse them. The Ryan plan would limit to a certain block grant, a certain amount of money. When that's all gone, it's gone.
It's gone,
and you use that, elderly people will use it to purchase insurance. And the problem I have with that, it was the Republicans and some Democrats that were saying you can't shift everything to the states, and that's what the Republicans are doing, shifting it to the states.
The states are in trouble already.
They're in trouble already.
And enough trouble, especially if you're California.
The elderly and infirm are going to suffer if we do this.
But in the state of New Jersey, things are beginning to work out because pensions are beginning to be pulled together. The state workers, their pension plans are being reformed right now by a pretty good governor, Michael Truncale.
Well, I'm happy to hear that there's good news coming out of New Jersey with a governor who's able to
stand by for more news.
Stand up for the will of the people. After all, that's what we should be about.
Okay, all right. Is it a matter when we talk about economic conditions? They, according to the leading economic indicators, they're not really, and the Fed chairman, they're not really expected to improve dramatically over the course of the next year.
No, and our economic conditions not going to improve until we get everybody working again. The reason that the states and the cities and the federal government are in such a money bind is because there's so few people paying taxes.
Michael Truncale thinks that this latest jobs plan to put 2 million construction workers to work is a feeble attempt by the president. I'm not trying to put any words into your mouth here, by the way. I'm not putting any words in your mouth when I say that Michael Truncale believes this. But 2 million, that's the entire jobs plan? That's the effort to turn American jobs around?
That's not enough.
But
in this present environment, we're kind of in a bind because we don't have, we're already up against our debt limit. You know, we're having trouble even getting the debt limit raised, and yet we need to stimulate the economy. How do you do that? That's the problem.
Well, right now,
lowering taxes is not the way.
Michael Truncale has an answer on this
First
question.
of all, we've tried bailouts, huge bailouts.
We've tried that.
We've had stimuluses, and we still have massive unemployment, and that's very difficult for the people who are unemployed. Our monetary policy, the Fed has pumped enormous sums of money into our system to the point now we risk serious inflation. And those very things that were designed by the Democratic majority and by our president are now the things that are going to hurt our economy because they're going to lead to inflation. Inflation hurts the poor most of all. And also, it's going to lead to the threat of increased taxes. And increased taxes make it difficult for businesses to see a way to get a return on their investment. And as long as that's the case, they simply are not going to invest in new factories and new stores,
This is a worldwide problem. It's not just the United States.
And one thing I'll disagree with is our economy is not suffering because too few people pay taxes. That's not it.
Right.
We're spending over 50% of Americans right now are on some sort of government subsidy. They're receiving a check. That's the problem we have. That's what we have to eliminate.
2/3 of our current deficit is caused by the Bush tax cuts and the wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. 2/3. We could eliminate that tomorrow.
Michael Truncale.
You know, sometimes they say it's not how much money you make, it's how much you spend. And that's what matters.
$2 billion a day in Iraq.
Well, we had a horrible thing happen in this country on 9/11. We never asked for it, but we're fighting for our freedoms.
But we should have never gone to Iraq.
Now, well, that's
$2 billion a day in Libya, by the way.
It is the rate of spending on various programs. And I can tell you that in the state of Texas, we have to balance our budget. There are agencies that have had to make cuts, and it can be done, but there is not a true discussion in Washington about cutting the rate of spending. Until that happens, we're going to give our children and our grandchildren a tremendous...
Perhaps we're on the wrong track. $2 billion a day in Libya. Why are we still in Libya?
Why are we there at all?
$2 billion a day in Libya. Why are we...
I'm not a fan of interventionist wars, and we really should never have gone to Iraq in the first place. I just agree with you that a terrible thing happened to us on 9/11, but Saddam Hussein and the people of Iraq had nothing to do with it. We were told to lie, just like we were told to lie when we entered the Vietnam War.
Godfrey Leggett has thrown the president under the bus with this comment.
No, it's not his.
And
problem.
Having said as much,
this is George Bush's problem.
We move to another fantastic question. That being, is the White House making the right move in releasing 30 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve?
No problem. It's a very small amount. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve is 727 million barrels. Okay, so 30 million barrels is a
We had to release
drop in the bucket.
We had to release oil during the hurricane. But prior to that, it's been it's a very rare move to do that.
The reserve is for emergencies.
Yes.
Okay, it's not for politics. It's for emergencies.
That's correct.
Was this
we don't have an
actually
emergency now. It's not going to affect the price
It's not
of
an
gas.
emergency.
I agree with Ken. It's not going to affect the price.
Not an emergency.
Okay, if it's not going to affect the price, then let's use that strategic reserve for what it's there, for emergencies for our military.
I agree.
But let's go back to the economic question. We can solve both. Our energy independence as well as jobs. Let's get back to drilling off the coast where we can get
back to drilling, he says. Final quick words.
We started running low on oil in 1974. Nobody's ever heard, I guess, of peak oil and Hubert's Peak or whatever it's called.
Okay.
The world is going to run out of oil one day. We are probably past peak oil. And no matter how much you drill, no more oil's being made.
Good news. In Texas, just south of San Antonio, with new forms of drilling, frack drilling, what have you.
You're talking about gas.
Near your
not
valley.
oil.
No, there's oil
There's
there.
oil there as well.
Oil there.
Yeah, it's not enough.
Enormous supplies of oil.
And a new one in the Gulf of Mexico
It's
as well.
fantastic.
Right.
We can get people back to work right here in Texas.
Final quick words from Mr. Godfrey Leggett. I have a minute left. Can spending cuts be a part of the debate over the budget?
Yes, as long as we throw
ceiling?
out the Bush tax cuts. Fine,
As
no
long as
problem.
we throw them out. How did I know he would say that? We'll be back with more with James Shannon right after this.